Everyone. Welcome to today's session. And it's an absolute honor and privilege for me to introduce the speaker for this evening, Mr. Alpesh Shah. Alpesh is a senior partner and managing director of the Boston Consulting Group. And as the head of BCG India, he has been advising clients in the Asia Pacific for the past 25 years. Across the Asia Pacific, Alpesh has assisted a wide variety of banks, finance companies, insurance companies, telcos, and IT services companies across a wide range of topics, including segment-specific strategy development, portfolio analysis, new business launch, breakout growth strategy development, pricing, improving channel effectiveness, operational efficiency enhancement, PMI post-merger integration, business divestiture, you name any of those areas, Alpesh has certainly worked on several engagements in each of these areas, actually. He has also authored many thought-provoking reports across multiple topics, including insurance, payments, digital lending, and the Indian internet economy. And he's also a regular speaker in most of the industry seminars and such sessions. Alpesh is a Bachelor of Computer Engineering from the LD College of Engineering and Ahmedabad, and holds an MBA from the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. And most importantly, Alpesh is a very articulate and is a very engaging speaker. And it's an absolute joy and pleasure listening to him, the various anecdotes that he narrates, which I have had the opportunity to listen to on various occasions. Welcome, Alpesh, to today's session. We look forward to a very engaging session. Thank you.
Thank you, Kavraj. Thank you very much. And I guess, thank you for giving me, it's an honor at my side to actually speak to you. One of the things that I was wrestling with was, what do I tell all of you, right? What do I share with you? And I decided to play safe and play to my strengths. So one of the things that is not there on my profile is that I'm a crazy sports freak. I play and follow too many sports for my own good. I love running. Running is a passion. Running is meditation. And so I decided that I would actually look at what sport has taught me and maybe share that with you. Right. So with that, a consultant being a consultant, I will use a few pictures to actually as a crutch to, share some thoughts. And so with that, why don't I jump into a presentation which I will actually share. Just confirming that you can actually see this, right? You can see this?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So let me start, and I have titled this Life Lessons from Sport, which are not taught at any school. So no offense meant to any school, but what follows next is what I have picked up from sport, and these are my learnings from all that I've followed. So I will be quick and I will run through it and then have more of a discussion towards the end of that, right? So the first one is that you have to define your purpose, and a really bold one at that. A purpose has to be worth it. So let me give you an example. Right here is a swimmer, as you can see. If you look at the picture carefully, you will see that on her left leg, she has been amputated below the knee. This is a South African swimmer called Natalie Dutoit. She was young. In Feb 2001, as she was going for her training and coming back, she had a scooter accident and basically lost part of her left leg. Obviously, you can imagine this changed what she could do. But guess what she did, right? Unlike most other people who would have either given up or actually felt bad for themselves, she decided that she was not going to give up. And she decided that she was going to take part in the Olympics. You would say, okay, big deal. There are a lot of people who take part in the Paralympics. But no, she decided that not only would she take part in the Paralympics, but she would take part in the Olympics, which is for normal, full-bodied people. She was very thoughtful. So she then looked at where would her disadvantage be the least. And she figured that in doing long distance swimming, the disadvantage of having one limb less would be the least. She used to be a 200-meter swimmer. She actually changed to the 10,000-kilometer swim. As they say, the rest is history. In 2008 in the Beijing Olympics, she actually qualified for the 10,000 swim finals. There were 33 finalists. She swam along with 32 others who were all four limbs, who were completely able-bodied. she finished 16th. It is completely remarkable what setting a worthy goal for yourself can do. So that is sort of lesson number 1, which says define your purpose, and a bold one at that. The second one, interestingly, says everything that we do, we have to do in teams. And let me give you an example of, sorry, just 1 second. I will make sure that I've got this right. Yes, I have. Sorry about that. So you have to make sure as you work in teams that you're both a good leader and a good follower. So if I share an example with you, and you might ask me why this is about teaming, and I will just explain that to you. For those of you who follow running, watch this video and I will explain in a minute.
1953, we have 1 minute to go. Eliud Kipchoge is on his way here.
It's not going to be a minute.
This humble farmer who used to run 2 miles to school every day and back. He used to go to the nearest town on his bike to sell milk at the local market. And now, through hard work and discipline, he's pointing. Come on, he says. Eliud Kipchoge has the hand of history on his shoulder. He has less than 200 meters to go. Eliud Kipchoge, let's keep an eye on the clock, into the final 20 seconds. Eliud Kipchoge has on his shoulder. 140, the unofficial time.
There's his wife.
Eliud Kipchoge storms into the history books in Vienna. 1:59.40, the unofficial time. The first man to run a marathon in under 2 hours. One final lung-busting stride for Kipchoge. One giant leap for human endeavor.
So as you heard, right, he is the first human being, and so far the only one, to have run the full marathon in less than 2 hours. So you might ask me the question, why is this about teaming? Right? And the reason this is about teaming is, I don't know, if you realize, when he was finishing, there were people behind him. There were 7 people behind him who in the last half a kilometer let him run on his own. As you see on the left-hand side of this picture, there were 41 pace setters or pacemakers. They ran in 6 teams of 7 people each, one short, but you see the 7 here, they ran in an inverted V formation in front of him to reduce the wind draft. And there are 2 people at the back on the sides to make sure that he did not become slower. And the reason is to just imagine, if you want to run the full in less than 2 hours, for those of you into running, each kilometer had to be run at 2 minutes and 50 seconds flat. Okay, just imagine. So what is remarkable is he had 41 people worked with him as pacemakers to make sure that Eliud Kipchoge was able to run. You could still argue, what's the big deal? You know, there are enough people who run as pacemakers. What the big deal is that out of this 41, they were all professional runners, 6 of them Olympians. And just to give you the 2 that I've written on this page, Bernard Lagat, Kenyan origin, has won 5 Olympic medals. Matthew Centrowitz, American, was the 1500 gold medal winner in the 2016 Olympics. Right? And here you're talking of 13th October 2019 when this world record was broken. Just imagine, right? That's what I mean by some days you are Eliud Kipchoge, you are at the center of the attention. Other days you have to be very comfortable being Bernard Lagat or Matthew Centrowitz. You might be the best the world has seen, but you will still be the support cast in some situations. So that for me is the second learning, work in teams. The third one is there is no substitute for hard work. Prepare, prepare, prepare. And the best example I have for you on that is this other runner, Usain Bolt. He won 8 Olympic golds and 14 World Championship medals. So 22 medals at the highest level. Guess how much time it took him to win those 22 medals on that D-Day? Those 22 medals combined, right? Those 22 medals combined added up to 300 seconds. Just picture that. He basically ran for 5 minutes, and I'm only taking the finals, 300 seconds to win 22 medals. But what people forget is that to be the best in those 300 seconds, he practiced 20 years, 365 days a year, 8, 10, 12 hours a day. And so for each of those 300 seconds that he was running to win the gold medals, there were literally 400 seconds, 400,000 seconds that he was practicing. So for every 1 second on show, he was practicing 4 lakh seconds. That is what I mean by practice, 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 right? There is no substitute. The fourth one is that life is a marathon and you have to persist if you want to excel. There are many examples in sport of people, and I put 8 examples out here. Each of them has had a stellar career. They've all been literally more than 20 years at the top of their game. Right? Literally more than 20 years at the top of their game. What is brilliant in this is some of them you will know of. So Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, the top left and the 3 on the top left and right. But some others you might not even have recognized as famous. So number 3 on the top row from the left, Leander Pace. I don't know how many of you know, very unheard of typically. He has played at the professional levels for 30 years. He turned professional in 1991. He retired in 2021. 30 years, I repeat. Not only 30 years, but he won 18 doubles Grand Slams. So between the men's doubles and the mixed doubles, he won 18 Grand Slams. He won an Olympic bronze. And what he holds a world record for is he participated in 7 Olympic Games. He represented India in 7 Olympics. I can go on, right? Take some of the others. Serena Williams turned pro in 1995. She's retiring as we speak this year. She has won 23 singles Grand Slams, 14 doubles Grand Slams, 2 mixed doubles Grand Slams. And she has been winning from 1999, while she turned pro in 1995, all the way until 2017. If you add all of this up, she's been playing for 27 years, but she's been winning Grand Slams for 20 years. Mithali Raj started playing in 1999, retired in 22, again 23 years, was the captain of India from 2004 to 22. I can go on, right? So I guess the next one is persistence. Number 5 is that as you look at life, and it's obviously true for sport, whatever you commit to do it with 100% commitment. There is no point in going half-hearted. Let me give you an example, right? This is Geet Sethi. He was the billiards world champion in 1985 at the age of 25. He used to be a neighbor. So I grew up in Ahmedabad. His parents lived in the same building as me. I remember one of these days I was having a conversation with his father. And we were talking about it, and somehow the conversation turned to Geet. And so Geet's father tells me, he says, you know what, a lot of people talk about how lucky Geet is. But do they know that from the day he turned 11 years old, till the day he became world champion at 25, for 14 years on the row, he did not have a single late night in his life. While all his friends were out there partying in the evenings, late nights, getting drunk, he was at home in bed by 9:30 every night, because he would get up at 5:30 the next morning, go for practice 6 to 10, then go to school or college. Because he knew that every day he did not practice well, he was one day later in becoming world champion. I know it sounds grand, but whatever you do, whatever you commit to, go all in. Number 6, sport teaches you how to manage stress better than anybody else. Right? And it's the quote at the bottom which really got me, which says, it's not the load that breaks you down, but it's the way you carry it. And for all of you cricket lovers, I don't know how many of you are Virat Kohli fans, but just imagine the pressure Virat Kohli is dealing with right now. A lot of the people in the world are gunning for him, all wondering when he's going to recover form or whether he should be dropped. To have to deal with this day in and day out with the expectations of 1.3 billion people is not funny. But that is what sport teaches you. How do you handle stress? Number 7, very important. Do not let others define your agenda. All of us have to run our own race. And for this, I will actually share 2 separate videos. Let me start with the first one. This is the 2012 Olympics, the 800 meters, which is my favorite event. As I mentioned to you, I'm a runner. This is my favorite event. This is the 2012 Olympics. I will share this one. And the next one is the 1972 Olympics. So you'll see the quality of the video as well worsens a bit. Also the 800 meters. So let me just share that and I'll tell you what I want you to take away from this, right?
Who the favourite is here. He goes in lane 3 and his name is David Rudisha, the world record holder at 1 minute 41.01. Will he make it fast? He's stopping pacemakers, he doesn't really need them. A great roar is the tall figure of Rudisha, whose father won an Olympic silver medal at the 4x4. And Rudisha is already prominent there, a man on his shoulder in the Ethiopian colours. Right on the outside, Khaki also. Khaki's on the shoulder of Rudisha. Let's take a check on the time. It's quick, very quick, 49.28. That Olympic record looks set to go in the second, ahead of our man. But it's Rudisha coming into home straight. We're going to be looking at the time very closely on this one. A brilliant run by the youngster Amos as he comes in second place. The other youngster, Keaton, is in third place now. Then a man, the three youngsters, with Solomon finishing. But Rudisha, what's the time? It's a world record! A world record!
So that's one way to run your race. So David Rudisha leads from the beginning, literally from the first 20-50 meters. He leads from the front, goes on to win, and actually at the same time breaks the world record. Okay, so that's one way to run your race. Let's take the next one. This is the 1972 Munich Olympics. The gap, these last, now 400 meters done. 1 lap to go. So 400 meters to go. First the gap is last. Meters done. The first gap is still last. Now he begins to make his move. As you can see. Just about 100 meters to go. Now he's near the tree. Just 50 to go. Still go.
Wow.
So as I was saying, right, there are two ways to win a race. You can lead from the front, you can, be last and come first as well. But what's important is you have to run your own race. If either of them had tried to run the race the other ran, they would not have won. And that is why it is quite important that you run your own race. Don't listen to what others say. You have to know what your ambition is, what your capabilities are, and run your own race. Right? Number 8, what sports teaches you is to be bold and not play percentage tennis, but to go for the lines. The two best examples I have of that, since I started with the tennis vocabulary, I'll start with the right. Bjorn Borg, he won 5 Wimbledons on the trot, 76 to 80. When he won 5 Wimbledons, one of these, there was an interview. And I remember distinctly, I was listening to that interview. And the media was actually talking to him, and this press reporter, he turns to Borg and says, Bjorn, today was your lucky day. On set point and on match point, you actually, hit the line and you won the match. Bjorn Borg looked at him with so much scorn. He looks at him and says, young man, luck had nothing to do with it. When I'm practicing every day, I practice hitting the lines. So that under pressure, in a big match, on match point, when I go and try to hit the line, I know the odds are with me. Right? That is what you do. When you want to win, you do not try to keep the ball in play. You go for the lines. You have to be bold enough for that. On the left, Michael Jordan, arguably one of the best, if not the best basketballer, at least in our generation, but for a long, long time. He was known for the fact that under pressure, when the scores are level or even his team is down, with 3 seconds to go, the ball is in his hand, he will score. He will score a 3-pointer with 2 seconds to go. As the rules in basketball go, once you release the ball, if the ball goes in after the clock touches down, it's okay. As long as the ball was released before the clock went to 0. He has done that not once, not twice, not 3 times, but multiple times. And that is something, again, being bold and going for the lines. He has gone on record saying that, you have to make your shots. He says, I have missed 100% of the shots I did not make. I know these are famous one-liners, But if you don't try, you can never succeed. And so number 8 was being bold and going for the lights. Number 9, and this is where sport, I would say, is the best. It teaches you to lose and to lose gracefully. No matter who you are, Michael Jordan, Bjorn Borg, Leander Pace, Virat Kohli, Roger Federer, Novak Djokovic, you name them. It's not a question of whether you will lose. It's only a question of how often will you lose. You will lose, and you have to learn to accept defeat gracefully. Let me share a really strange situation with you, right? This is 2003. The match between what happened? This is because he had it in the hand, it is given as a penalty because the missile Now this is where you realize. So here the Danish player, Morten Byvost, talking to his coach. They have decided. You will see what happens. He intentionally misses the penalty. He intentionally misses it because he did not think. What is even more remarkable that Denmark lost the game. Right? Denmark did not. They were not winning, but they lost the game. They still decided that this was the right thing to do. And so you learn to lose, and you learn to lose gracefully. And the last one is sport teaches you how to live the values anytime and every time, even when people are not looking. And this is important. It is very easy to live the values when you think you will get caught not living them. But how do you live the values every time, even when people are not looking? So here is 2019 Australian Open. One of my favorites, Roger Federer, walking in. As you see, he turns right to walk into the area. The security looks at him and says, "You don't have your accreditation badge." Not once does Roger Federer tell him, "Don't you know who I am? I am the Roger Federer, let me in." He waits patiently. He does not know when his coach is coming. There is even Lubicic comes in with his card, lets him in. Right? That is what I mean by saying, live your values even when others are not looking. And so that, if I may, sort of brings me to summing it up, saying here are 10 lessons from sport which are not taught in schools. 1, define a worthy purpose. 2, work in teams, ready for the fact that some days you're going to be Eliud Kipchoge, the center of attraction. Other days you're just going to be the support cast. Work hard, no substitute for hard work. Persist, life is a marathon. Whatever you define as your purpose, go all in with full commitment. Learning how to carry the load and the pressure. Don't get carried away, because especially pressure is what the world does to you. Run your own race. Don't get carried away by looking left or right. Be bold and go for whatever your ambition is. But if you lose, learn to lose graciously. And live the values anytime and every time, even when others are not looking. So those are my 10 lessons from sport. And if I end with, I will just end with one video, which is actually quite remarkable. This is the most fun video I have seen. For all of you who follow rugby and follow the All Blacks, you will love this. This is what the All Blacks do at the beginning of a game. So this is the New Zealand All Blacks rugby team. At the beginning of every game, they play their folk dance, right? Let me just play that for you, and then I will bring this to a close. So. So that is the New Zealand All Black team. At the beginning of the game, they actually perform this folk dance. I guess the idea is to psych out the team on the other side, right? And unfortunately, they succeed many times. But let me pause. Like I said, those were my 10 lessons from sport that I have enjoyed, and would be good to have a conversation, whatever is on your mind.
Thank you, Alpesh. I think, as always, that was a very engaging session. And before we, hand it over to the students, as always, I also want to ask a question, actually. So you obviously have listed out 10 traits and 10 values, 10 lessons from the sports, right? And you have also seen a lot of corporate executives and professionals in the last 26 years, right? Like as you once mentioned, that many of the newly joined people were not even born when you started your consulting career, right? Like, so by looking at them, if you look at all those 10 traits, which one do you think is becoming a bit of a challenge, right? Like, which is the most difficult one that you see amongst the youngsters, like that you see as a problem, or like, which youngsters need to deal with, or some things comes natural to them, some things you don't see glimpse of that. Like, so how do you look at those from the youngsters' perspective?
I think it's unfair to generalize and compare to all youngsters, but maybe I will take a shot. So, obviously different people will have different challenges. But if I look at one or two, which I think certainly more often than not, youngsters struggle with that, I would say it's persistence or patience, right? They do want success quickly and they want it immediately. So this ability to persist for 10, 15, 20 years before achieving something is not something that they have the patience for. They would like to do that very quickly. So I think just both between that persistent and prepare, the example of Usain Bolt, I think if I just take those two, the younger generation is in a hurry to achieve things. And I think just having the patience and the awareness to say nothing good was built in a day, it will take a little more effort, I think is the one thing. On the counter side, I would say what the younger ones are a lot better at than, if I look at the previous generation, I would say certainly the younger generation is a lot bolder. So I don't think they are shy of having bigger ambitions, defining more purposeful ambitions for themselves, going for the lines that comes more naturally to the younger ones. So I think there are always two sides of the same coin.
Yes. Over to you, Kimaya.
Thank you so much, sir. Okay, so I think we can get started with the Q&A session, sir. So the very first question that we have, we actually collected a bunch of those prior to the session. So how do you establish yourself in a room full of people to be heard but not shout?
That's a tough one. So I guess it depends a bit on, let's start it. There are two scenarios. First, is it the first time you're with that group of people? Right? If it's the first time, then it's even more difficult. If it is not the first time, then your reputation precedes you, right? So, hopefully you built up a reputation. Do you talk sensible things? Do you make intelligent points? So I think in those two situations, it'll be different. So let me take the first one, which is the most difficult. If it is the first time, there are 20 people in a room, 30 people in a room, and you haven't met these 20 people before, right? Then it's a difficult one. How will people listen to you? So I think there are some things, and there are some, the corporate world will also tell you there are some trainings that they will tell you as well. How do you carry yourself? How do you come across? But I think some of those things are good in theory. It becomes very difficult if you're just landing up in a room for the first time with 20 people who meet you for the first time. And I don't think you need to shout, but you will have to be assertive, right? And there's a big difference between being assertive and being aggressive. So you do have to say, I would like to make a point. I would like to come in. Depends on what you're talking about. But Kimaya, if I'm being honest, I'm a bad sample for that. And I'll tell you why. I remember distinctly one of the group discussions for one of the, this is now 27, 28, 29 years back. I did not manage to open my mouth. And it was not even a room full. There were only 12 or 13 of us. I did not utter a word. I did not speak a word in the group discussion that was there, because all the other 12 were very keen to speak. And so I said, fine, if it is that important for you, go ahead. So I'm a bad sample to try and answer this. But I would say that in general, you have to, without shouting, make your point heard. And you just have to figure out how you're assertive enough. And whenever people find the answer to this, let me know, so I can benefit from that as well. So.
Thank you so much for your answer, sir. That was quite an interesting one. So the next question that we have with us is how do you build a profile which is good for consulting in future?
So consulting, the good thing with consulting is it's actually only common sense, and we're not looking for any specific topics or subjects, right? So what are consultants typically looking for? So I will tell you, let me start the other way. Let me tell you what are the 3 criteria that we use in our evaluation, right? So then we can work backwards to saying what would you have to do. So if I do any interview, if I conduct any interview, the evaluation form only has 3 criteria. Criteria 1 is, let's assume I was interviewing Alpesh, right? The criteria 1 would be, does Alpesh exhibit success-oriented behavior? So is he success-oriented? Is he driven? Is he outcome-oriented? What do we test within that? When I talk to people, I am testing out saying, first, obviously, hence, what is your track record in academics? What projects have you done otherwise? And are you outcome oriented in those projects? So it's not good to just say I did an internship, but what was the outcome in those internships? What did you drive? So that's one which says, are you outcome oriented or success oriented? The second one is we actually look at people and say, are you good at problem solving? Because that is one of the most important skills that we need in consulting, for which we typically ask for a case, right? We share a business situation with people and see how people react to that. The trick there is to see, can you take a big problem, break that down into smaller pieces? Can you then answer some of these questions and piece the whole jigsaw puzzle together so you have one answer? So that's the second big thing we look for. And the third thing we look for is, I would ask the question saying, can I leave Alpesh alone with my clients? I used to joke, but I used to call it the stranded at the airport test, saying if I was stuck with Alpesh at the airport, would I run away or would I enjoy having a conversation with him, right? So those are 3 things we look for. Hence, coming back to the specific question saying, what do you do on the profile? I would say from a profile perspective, you can only work on the first one, right? And for the first one, I would say just having few things that you've gone deep in. So whatever you've done, whether it is your academics, whether it is internships, whether it is, other work that you've done, how do you highlight the outcomes and the impact of that is something I would say is very important. The other 2 will only come out during the interview. So yes, make sure that you're a personable person, but that is difficult to plan for. You are who you are. But I'm saying the first one is where you build your profile. I would say fewer things, but deeper with very clear outcome orientation.
Thank you so much for your answer, sir. That was very insightful. And given the current scenes at campus where we had Bain and BCG and other consult companies coming on campus for interns, I'm pretty sure that helped a lot of students for the RAPs. So coming to the next one, we have, what has consulting taught you over the 22 years spent at BCG?
So it's quite interesting. If I distill this down, 22 at BCG, another 4 at Booz Allen. For that, so I've actually been consulting for 26 years. And I've thought about this. So I've only learned 4 things. Strange it may seem. So consulting has only taught me 4 things. One, it has taught me the art of problem solving. So over the last 25 years, I have become a better problem solver. So I have learned how to solve problems. As I said, what does it teach you? You take a big problem, you define different components of the problem. You say, okay, this problem is not 1, but it's got 10 subparts. It teaches you how to take each part and find the right data points, ask for the right information, do the right analysis, ask the right questions to other people in the market. Once you get all of that information, then it teaches you how to answer that and piece all those 10 pieces together and get one picture for the answer. So that's one. I would say I have learned how to solve problems and have become good at that. The second skill that it has taught me is the art of people management. So in consulting, as you get to becoming what I call a project manager, right, you're actually sort of stuck in between. So think of consulting like a chariot, right? The first few years in consulting, you are the workhorses, and with no offense meant, but you are the people who are doing all the hard work. You're running around, collecting the right data, talking to clients, talking to customers, talking to people in the channel, collecting all the information, doing all the analysis. After the first 5 or 6 years, you become what I call the charioteer. You are sitting and you're making sure all the effort is going in one direction, in the right direction. Right? As you become the charioteer, it becomes very critical because all the horses are looking at you and saying, why should I listen to this charioteer? All the horses are very smart. They look at this and say, why should I listen to this charioteer? So as the charioteer, you have to manage 4, 5, 6 really smart people. At the same time, you also have to manage up because, in the chariot are sitting people like me, who after many years of experience are going to say, why are we doing X? Why not Y? Let's go northeast, let's go southwest. So the charioteer has to manage down, has to manage up, and has to manage clients on a day-to-day basis. So what consulting teaches you is how to manage people, right? Peers, juniors, seniors across the board. So that's the second skill that consulting has taught me, which is, for want of a better word, people management. The third skill that consulting taught me is how do you handle fragmentation, right? Doing multiple things at any point of time and keeping multiple balls juggling in the air and making sure, I will not say nothing drops, but at least very few drop, something or the other gives. But how do you do clear, manage fragmentation, do a lot of multitasking? And the fourth and the last skill, which I think consulting has really taught me, is the art of developing and building relationships. I have often asked clients, why did you hire BCG? And my clients look at me and say, I didn't hire BCG. I hired Alpesh Shah from BCG, right? And it took me some time to figure that out, but that's true. The clients say that BCG is a very amorphous thing for me. It's a, I know you, you have come to meet me, I trust you, you are credible. But yes, I also know that the whole might of BCG is behind you. So yes, I will trust both of you. So don't get me wrong, nobody hires Alpesh Shah. But he said nobody hires BCG as well. You hire Alpesh Shah from BCG. So I would say those are the 4 skills, if I look at it, that I've learned. The art of problem solving, the art of people management, managing fragmentation, and the art of relationship development. So those are the 4 capabilities or skills that I've learned. And the interesting part is all 4 are great from a life perspective, not only from the corporate world. It teaches you how to do things in life a lot better and differently as well.
Thank you so much for your answer, sir. That was indeed quite insightful. So coming to the next question, how should a person with an experience of almost 20 plus years in sales and marketing plan for a career in consulting firms?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
How should a person with an experience of almost 20 plus years in sales and marketing operations plan for one in consulting firms?
Okay, so that is interesting. And the good thing now is it's possible. So the reason I say that is until I would say a decade back, consulting firms did not really think as much of, getting people with really deep experience as you speak about. 20 years is a lot. The good news now is most of us consulting firms are actually very open and actually need capabilities like what you're talking about, right? 20 years of sales experience or otherwise. How do you go around planning for it? I think getting very philosophical, the rules or the guidelines are the same as we were talking earlier, even for, young campus hires. You just have to look at where you have actually, in the last 20 years, what has been the success orientation, the outcome orientation? How do you showcase that? And 2, as you come in, recognize that, both as a consulting firm will have to deal to, I think it's very important to unlearn a few things and learn a few things, right? It's very easy for most human beings to learn new things. What is difficult for us human beings is to unlearn old things, because we have the old way of doing things. We always stick to that. So as you make any change, and this is true for any change, but specifically as you look at moving from what you're doing in sales to, let's say, consulting, you will have to recognize that consulting will work a little differently from what you're used to working. And hence being open-minded to say, fine, I'm actually going to do things differently. I'm going to unlearn a few things and start afresh. Not getting stuck and saying, but I know this better than the consultants do, which is likely true. But even then you will have to actually, learn to adjust. So I would say those are the 2 things. One says, as you look at your 20 years of experience, how do you showcase and think about the outcome and the successes that you've had? But 2, if you decide to and jump into consulting and do that, then being open-minded to say, I will not let the past is not what I want to just stick to. I will obviously learn value and get the best out of what I've done in the past, but also build on new ways of working to add to that. So.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Thank you so much for answering that question, sir. So I have one more question for you that says, with the growing ladder, the responsibility will increase. And doing that leads to some pressure, either in the form of a time-bound activity or some critical activity, because as a team lead, it is our own responsibility. So how would you manage that pressure?
It's quite remarkable. All of us will rise to the level where we are able to take that pressure, right?
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to become a saint or a philosopher, but pressure can never be given. It can only be taken, right? We take pressure. Nobody gives us pressure, right? It's the same like stress. You can take stress. Nobody can give you stress. So as I the example of Virat Kohli, right? Just imagine the pressure he's under. Now you could argue, saying, poor guy, he will never get out of it. Maybe he will. So that is true in the corporate world as well. As you keep growing and you keep going up, as whoever asked this question, going up the ladder, the expectation from you will increase. But as the expectation increases, hopefully your capabilities also increase. That is why you're going up the ladder.
Yes.
Right? You have to believe in yourself and recognize that the reason somebody is giving you this responsibility is because you're capable of it, not because your uncle or aunt gave you that job, right? So you clearly are capable of it. So believe in yourself, believe in the people who actually put you in that place. Do your best. And I think the one thing, again, like I said, this is becoming very philosophical, but all you can do is do your best. After which the outcome is what it is. You should never feel, if only I had done this, if only I had done that, right? You should believe I did my best. The outcome is what it will be. Beyond a point, you can't decide what the outcome has to turn out exactly. So you should have a clean conscience saying I did my best. And like I said, pressure, stress is something that you have to learn to deal with. Nobody can teach you how. Though I'm told that doing pranayama and yoga helps. I am not sure. If it does, it does. All of us will find our own ways. Like I said, for me, running is meditation for me. So if I don't run for 2 or 3 days, I feel very strange. All of us will find different ways of handling our own pressures and strains. But yeah, it's I don't have a very easy answer for that, but it's about having to deal with it yourself.
Thank you so much for answering, sir. And on a personal level, that actually felt very refreshing to hear. So the next question that I have is, how do women manage the demands of consulting career, and why are there so few women in strategy consulting?
So let's start with the second part and come to the first one, right?
Okay.
So actually, I'm not sure that there are that few. So let me start with, at BCG, if I take the consulting team, nearly 35% of a consulting team is women. Okay, maybe 32, 33 now. It's about 33, 34% of a consulting team. So 1 in 3 is women. And the reason, you could ask, if you ask me, is that target 50? The answer is yes. But why is it 33? It is also because the pool of people that we hire from, if I go to the IITs or if I go to the IIMs, they don't have more than 30, 35% women, right? So if I look at the pool itself is in that range, right? At the undergrad level, it's about 35, 40, it's about 30, 35%. At the postgrad level, it's only about 20, 25%. Now that's going up in the last few years. So yes, we are also seeing that change. So I would say first, if I look at the women in consulting, you would have about 33, 35%. That's first. If I look at why, how women deal with it, it's actually quite remarkable. Women actually have an inherent advantage in consulting. I'll tell you why. Women are taught, you call it genes, right? Especially in India, they're taught to deal with multiple stakeholders. I look at myself and I look at my wife. If I don't go for a wedding, nobody tells me anything. They will say, oh, theek hai, Alpesh is busy. Right? My relatives, not her relatives. If my wife does not go, they will actually, even for my relatives, they will say, why did she not come? No matter whether she's working or not, they don't care, right? The expectation for a woman is a lot more, right? I look at my kids, I'm a pretty hands-on dad. I have a 16-year-old and a 20-year-old. I teach them physics, math, English, etc. My wife teaches the rest. But even then, for them, the default is, it's great if I'm around, but otherwise mom is there, right? So what happens is women are expected. The expectation of women is a lot more. So I look at it and I have only 2 or 3 big priorities or stakeholders in my life. In the case of my wife, she will have 5 or 6, and she has learned to deal with it. So women are a lot better at handling fragmentation than men ever will be, right? Now, that being said, as you said, it does become difficult because consulting is a very tight profession. It is expecting a lot from people. And especially as people go through it, when you start at a young age, and then if you're, actually going to start a family and so on, it does become a lot more complicated. That being said, in consulting, it's a lot easier to manage because we have a project orientation, right? So, for example, let me take consulting versus, or let me take BCG versus a bank. If you're in a bank and you're a branch manager, you are now 28, 30 years old and you decide you want to start a family. You're taking a 6-month, 9-month break. When you come back, you can't get the same branch back because somebody else has to run the branch, right? It's gone. Whereas if you take a break from consulting and you come back, you can continue exactly where you left off, right? So conceptually it's easier. That being said, it is a demanding profession, so I have no illusions on that. But I think it can be managed. There is a lot that consulting firms have done, BCG included, talking about flex. We have very many flexible models where people can work part-time. They can come back and not do client work for some time. People can start. We've introduced very interesting concepts of 10+2 and so on, which says you work only 10 months in the year and take 2 months off. And that's why, because you have this project orientation, you can actually do that. So I think that's the simple thing.
It's true, sir. Thank you so much for answering this question. So let's move on to the next question, which says, within consulting, how has your profile changed over the years? What you did in your first year versus what you did in, say, your 5th year versus what you are doing now? How does that role evolve in consulting?
So this one of the things one of my mentors told me early on is that every 3 to 4 years, you have to keep reinventing yourself, no matter where you are, right? So you can't continue doing the same thing that you were doing. So if I look at what I was doing in the first 5 years, let's take it in 5-year buckets, right? The first 5 years, I was literally just becoming good at problem solving. The next 5 years, I was becoming good at running teams and, making sure I was able to manage and be a good middle level manager around. The next 5 years, I was learning to be a good partner in the firm and, make sure I was able to get enough business through the door. If I take the last 10 years, I would say is when I've really moved to saying it's not about just doing projects and building, a few client relationships. It's also about identifying what you are as a leader, what you want to do, what your style is, how you want to change that. How do you create, your profile or brand in the industry? I would look around and say, now it's not about the project that I sell, but it's about what brand I'm building with a set of people, with a set of, I would say, leaders, industry doyens, so that, when people are asked, what do you think about Alpesh, they will have a point of view. So I think, every 5 years, you keep reinventing yourself and setting a different purpose for yourself. Going back to my first point, the 10 lessons from sport, like Natalie Dutwa set a target even after having lost her leg. I think each of us should do it, which says every 5 years, set a very simple 1 or 2 goals or milestones for yourself. And, you keep getting better and better at that.
Sure, yes. Coming on, we have now one last question for you, sir. So as we know, trust is the most important thing in consulting. So how do you become a trusted advisor to a client?
I think I can think of 3, if I look at how do you build the right trust with clients, right? I call it what I call it the 3C model. Okay, it is conviction, courage, and caring. So let me tell you what I mean by that. Conviction. Whatever you share with clients, there has to be conviction behind it, which is where all the detailed analysis comes in. Right? If I go and tell a client do X or do Y, it is not useful if I can't back that up with more specifics and details behind that. So that's one. You have to work on your conviction to be able to tell a client do X, don't do Y. That's one. The second one is you have to have courage. At times, a client will ask you questions which you may or may not have answers to. Right? You have to have the courage to say, I don't know. You also have to have the courage at times to say, I don't know, but I think we should, you go out on a limb and say, we should try something different. So I would say the second one is courage. And the third one, which is the most important, is caring. Right? You have to care. And deep down, not superficially. Because clients are as smart as you, if not smarter. I saw one of the questions and somebody said, how do you advise people who are smarter than you, right? Who know more than you? If I'm looking at a client and in my mind, like in those comics, you have the money bags sign going up saying, I'm going to get business from this client. The client is smart, he or she will figure it out. And there goes my credibility or my trust. When I'm talking to a client, I have to really care for the client. I have to care about what happens to the client, about what value will get delivered, not about what's in it for me. You have to believe that, you have to train yourself. If I deliver the right value to client, I have to believe that I will make enough money out of that. Right? The single largest reason for a consultant to exist is client value delivery. The only reason actually. And so that caring, so as I look at it, I would say conviction, basis of the analysis, which is the detailed answer. Courage, being able to say, I don't know, but also the caring where you're around even when the client, when the client needs you and not only when the client pays you. So I would say those are three things that help build a really trusted relationship with clients.
Thank you so much for answering, sir. That brings me to an end of all of the questions that we had till now. It was very engaging question and answer session with you. Now I would like to hand this over to Kavirat.
Thank you, Kimaya, and thank you, Alpesh, for such a wonderful evening, right? I mean, among all the four things that you mentioned about what you learned from consulting, I'll add one more point, actually. Humility. I think I have never seen Alpesh is absolutely humble in spite of holding such a senior position in the world's topmost strategic consulting firm, and in spite of all the wealth of experience that he has accumulated over the years, is always accessible and always willing to help and support, right? I mean, I have managed to maintain, connect with him over the last several years, I think. And the humility is so remarkable, right? And it's so, I mean, the concept of people outside will be quite different about those who are working in some of these senior roles. And you are an exemption absolutely to that. Thank you so much for the wonderful opportunity. The team, on behalf of the team at IIT Madras, I would like to express sincere gratitude to you, and we certainly look forward to hosting you in person in campus soon, because that's going to be certainly a different kind of an experience, right? Like, so thank you for your time and all the insights, and the audience also. I hope all of you have a great evening for whatever is remaining. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.